Good afternoon, everybody. Before I begin, I'd like to thank the Commission for the wonderful, wonderful week that I've experienced so far, for accepting my research, and also to the Canadian University, especially Timos, for all your help and hospitality this week. So for a few years now, I've been doing research in LGBTQ studies, looking at different types of populations and perceptions of different people. Recently, in the last couple of years, the heightened news of transgendered individuals in American society, especially, different surveys have come out. The United States National Trans Survey, which is modeled a little bit after some of the school climate surveys of GLSEN and whatnot, have come out, and I started thinking about when I started reading those, what would be the perceptions of transgendered individuals in departments of music in the United States. And also I wanted to know, when I started the studies, how transgendered individuals felt about their treatment by their professors and their peers. So after a survey of literature and stuff, I used two different surveys, and I distributed the surveys in the southeast portion of the United States, as delineated by the National Association for Music Education, in the states of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Kentucky, I believe. And I sent a survey to chairs of the departments of music, or deans of the College of Music, whatever the music executive's title was, and asked them to distribute to all students in the department, graduate and undergraduate. There were about 170 institutions combined, and I asked them to respond with the enrollment and whatnot. So what I found out was that most of the people who filled this out were people who identified as non-transgendered. So I'm only going to report on those numbers today. I don't have enough data for the transgendered individuals, but in the breakout sessions, I do have some things we can talk about. So the data was collected online through SurveyShare, and like I said, I had 205 undergraduates and graduate students. The results, most were, I had different demographics, school graduate, undergraduate, continuing education. I also, people identified as male, people identified as female, people identified as gender queer, non-conforming, people identified transgender, male to female, transgendered female to male. I also asked for sexual identity and expression, or how they ever define that as gay, lesbian, queer, non-conforming, prefer not to say, things like that. And all that is on my poster, which I can pull up. So I got all these demographics. I got responses to the survey. I adapted the survey a little bit just to have the language of music in it, piloted the pilot, and had some internal consistency. I'm just going to hate when I say this, but my Chromebax alpha was, for the internal reliability, was 0.92 with when I piloted it, and I had similar internal consistency after the 205 were calculated. And what I found when I did demographics through a Kruskal-Wallis test is that 3 different areas showed some significances. Now, overall, college-aged cisgender females enrolled as music majors may be more accepting of transgender individuals than their transgender male counterparts. Males indicated that transgenderism endangers the family, they would avoid transgender individuals, and they would be uncomfortable if a family member were to become romantically involved with a transgender individual. Females indicated that they would welcome transgender friends, are more comfortable attending social functions that would include transgender individuals, and would be more comfortable with a transgender neighbor. Because the results are so limited, I mean, this is not a representative sample, but it's a start. The implication is this, is that if we continue to get more response, if I continue to garner more responses like this, the implications is creating in our foundations classes, whatever classes we are, opportunities for students, especially male, to interact with transgender individuals, and also to be able for them to tell their stories and interact with them. There are more things I'd like to talk about, but I think I'm about done. I'm right at the time, so I will leave it at that and wait for your questions.
That was almost perfect timing.
Thank you.
So I have no questions as of yet. Do I have some questions? Harry?
Being at a university, whatever, where this, there are a couple terms you didn't define. I'm going to ask you to do that, and then just talk a little bit. Like you said, unless I missed it, cisgender.
Yes, sir.
What does that mean?
Cisgender means that the sex that you were born with is the gender to which you identify. I was born a male, and I identify as a male.
I just want to make sure.
And that was defined on the survey.
Yeah.
So there was a note on the survey
Yeah.
for individuals for that.
Yeah, and elsewhere too, I'm sure, but in the United States, this is, I think, a significant issue. And the university I work at, it's significant in a positive way. But I think, I looked outside, I think I remember though that, could you talk a bit more, if you're comfortable, with kind of the negative aspect of the lack of comfort, the feeling not, well, the people who you don't have the data really, not comfortable in situations, feeling, I kind of don't want to get too
Not quite sure.
specific.
Are you asking me to speak on behalf of transgendered students?
Yes.
Okay, I can only speak to the students in my department who are out as transgendered or gender queer non-conforming.
Mm-hmm.
And so their comfort levels, as far as that they've shared with me, because in my previous role as associate chair, I would deal a lot with student problems. They would come to me, Harry, and say, could you let the faculty know that these are my pronouns? And it's becoming more and more common that when we start a class, say your name for me and tell me which pronouns do you prefer to be identified as, he, she, they, them. And we have a student who is a they, them, and I have a student who is transitioning female to male, and he wants to be known as a male. So I sent out a note to the entire faculty stating that at the beginning of the academic year, and the students, the two students in question came to me, and I told them I was going to do this, and they said yes. I also have a friend whom I've always known as a woman, who in the last year she has, quote, come out. And I asked her why, and she said, well, you do this kind of research. And so she told me her entire story. And if she were to take the survey, this is a quick aside, she would not identify as transgender. She would identify as female. Because she's gone through not just transition, but the surgical transition, as well as hormonal therapy and everything else. And so when she told me her story of going through school, it wasn't so much that she felt bullied, which a lot of the literature has that type of information. Where transgender, 54%, I think, even the people, there are supports in place, but 54% of transgendered students and people in society feel bullied, even by the medical profession. And that's actually where this kind of research started, was with nursing and doctors and counselors and things like that. So there's, but hers was more of the emotional turmoil, just not being and thinking that she was gay. And actually her first partner in college was a male, and he had seen her through the transition all the way through. And so there, I think there's two sides. There's the bullying, oppressive side.
Right.
There is also the emotional side, which comes with it, dealing with family, dealing with religion, dealing with those types of issues. So those are the things that I've been reading mostly about, and what I've heard about and experienced myself.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I don't know if there'll be time here, but in the room, you know, the university I'm at, it is very interesting because we have the two extremes you just mentioned, positive and negative, as when I say extremes. And I'd like you to think, we'll talk more about your perspective of how to deal with all of that,
Yeah.
unless there's time here. So,
Graham?